The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
All right, Kyle, I got a secret to tell you.
What, man?
Your mama is so...
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We'll save that one for the Discord. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a part-time credentialed media member, baby. Let's go. Before we dive into this episode, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks, because it is your Canucks every damn day. If you haven't done so already, what are you waiting for? Make sure you go subscribe or follow us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We also got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Where would the Vancouver Canucks be without this stat behind the bench, okay? And I'm not just talking about Rick Tocchet, but we're talking about Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar. Are they the real MVPs of the Vancouver Canucks season? We're going to dive a bit deeper into the impact that Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar have brought to the Canucks to kick off today's episode of Locked On Canucks. We'll also touch on the GOATs of the week. There's one guy who's running away with it. If you don't know who it is, you might be a new listener to the show, and we welcome you. Okay, welcome. We'll touch on GOATs of the week, our 5 best Canucks of the past week, and we'll touch on the yearly GOAT rankings as well. And then let's get into some of the top moments of the Canucks season. We're going to give you Garland's top 3 moments of the season. He said it on a recent article on Canucks.com. We'll talk about, if he missed out on something, and what the vibe might be like at Rogers Arena come playoff time, if it will be one of the loudest buildings in the NHL. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. But before we get into it, let me introduce my co-host, someone who, if we combine our bank accounts together, we might be able to afford one Canucks playoff ticket. Kyle Bowen, how's it going, brother?
And it would still be worth it, man, because at the end of the day, you only really have your memories. You know what I'm saying?
Who would go, you or me?
You would go. Come on, you would go, man. You would go, definitely. You would go because I think you could still take your little baby boy for free. So it'd be a 2-for-1 package. Boom, bam. Okay. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, talking about your Vancouver Canucks and really just, showing some love for, in my opinion, really the obvious choice of the answer, right? So why did this happen with the Canucks? Like, how has it changed so quickly? It seems surprising, but when you look at it, they're being led, like this group of players, by some of the best players of the early 2000s and the 90s, straight up. And it's ironic because we're talking about Adam Foote here and Sergei Gonchar, but we're talking about Adam Foote on a podcast. And bro, this takes me back to that time way back in the day when we did a podcast together and you opened up about your foot fetish on one of those episodes. So this is a 2-for-1 type of thing, man. It's crazy, man. Can't get enough feet if you're Trevor Beggs. Anyways, Trevor Beggs, open up, talk about it. I know you read a couple articles on Gonchar and Foote. Feed me some information onto like why technically this has worked for your Vancouver Canucks.
Well, I think first and foremost, you brought in these guys based on their experience, but also I guess their work outside of hockey. And I think that more so applied to Sergei Gonchar, because with Adam Foote, I do think it was a bit more of an unknown what he was going to bring behind an NHL bench, because he hadn't really done it, right? And he had a really interesting quote. It was last year at After Hours when he talked about being back behind an NHL bench, or being behind an NHL bench, I guess, for the first time. He said, "I feel alive again." Ooh. And that quote, I mean, it's one thing to be passionate about your job, but that quote in particular really stood out to me. It still stands out to me over a year later. But you look at what Adam Foote, I think it's been 2 things with Adam Foote. First and foremost, I think he's obviously in the right spot, right? He was a head coach in the WHL, and maybe that wasn't quite the role for him. I think you talk about this more at the NFL, but some guys aren't meant to be head coaches. They're meant to be assistants. And I do think Adam Foote is in the right role right now. And again, you talk about one of the best defensive defensemen of all time, one of the best penalty killers of all time. That is his jam, man. And, I think it's been a culmination of the fact that, you have Adam Foote in the right spot, but you also have better personnel, man. So let me read you on April. We're doing this on April 2nd, 2024. Do you want to hear the Canucks, the 6 defensemen they put out on the ice on April 2nd, 2023? And I'm going to list them in terms of ice time. It was Quinn Hughes, Kyle Burrows, Tyler Myers, Jack Rathbone, Ethan Bear, and Akito Hirose. there were times last season where Christian Wolanin, Kyle Burrows, Guillaume Brisebois, and Noah Juulsen were all up with the NHL team. So you talk about last season and, the lack of good defensemen on this hockey team to where they are now, where they're scratching Nikita Zadorov, and even though he's not happy about it, it's just like night and day, right? So I think the personnel has been huge. And again, I just went on a tangent about Foote without even talking about Gonchar, the guy who had experience, right? He was part of that Pittsburgh organization. His first 2 years in Pittsburgh, they go to win 2 straight cups. And obviously, Gonchar doesn't deserve all the credit, but he's been known in Pittsburgh as the defenseman whisperer. And Kyle, maybe I'll throw it to you. Who do you think has had a bigger impact on the Canucks? And I think the answer might be obvious, but maybe it's not. Because we're talking about defenseman whisperer here.
Trying to split us up again, trying to split, create a divide in between this organization. Who's done better, Foote or Gonchar? Bro, they both killed it. They've both killed it. I mean, look at how much better Noah Juulsen has gotten. Look at how much better this team has done in totality after, us in September not kind of looking at the Vancouver Canucks and that D-Core, even with all its changes, as a top-end defensive core. Like, that has so much to do with, the whisper and Sergei Gonchar and the structure implemented by a guy like Adam Foote. And, I look at the little things too. Like, not only has Noah Juulsen gotten a lot better, but I even look at a guy like Tyler Myers and Nikita Zadorov. Like, the ability for both Gonchar and I guess Foote more specifically because he's always there to be able to deliver a message and have that message be stuck to those guys is, again, raising the floor of this club. Like, I don't really see the same amount of mistakes from a guy like Zadorov. I don't. The only mistakes Tyler Myers is making on a consistent basis now is just based on him taking a lot of penalties, which kind of leads me to this. I think we're going down a path where these 8 games are important for Zadorov, Tyler Myers, Ian Cole, and Noah Juulsen, because if I'm Tyler Myers, man, and I know this is a little bit off topic, and maybe Adam Foote can fix this. If I'm Tyler Myers, bro, you might be the 7th D-man going into game 1 of the playoffs because of your inability to stay out of the box. Anyways, I can't pick one or the other, but why were they calling Gonchar the whisperer? Because you know how in previous episodes I've given Foote credit, and for some reason my mind has just ignored the fact that Gonchar's even there. I know he's kind of like a part-time assistant coach, quote unquote. Like, what do you think he does well, and like why did they call him the whisperer back in the day?
Yeah, so it got mentioned on a Pittsburgh Penguins podcast in 2019, and I think it was just some of the talk from behind the scenes that was going on in Pittsburgh at the time. But I think, one of the best examples of Gonchar being the defenseman whisperer is Justin Schultz, right? That 2017 run was the one where the Penguins had no Chris Letang. And who led the team in ice time during that 27 run? It was Justin Schultz, who...
Crazy.
What did they trade for? A third-round pick for him from Edmonton? I'm trying to remember. That's going back in the time machine a bit. But, Justin Schultz was considered a one-dimensional offensive defenseman. And I think even back in Seattle, he's still kind of considered that now, right? But for a moment in time there, in his prime, in his mid-20s with the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think Sergei Gonchar was the perfect guy to have around Justin Schultz, because I think there was a relatability, right? Justin Schultz, he had the skills, he had the tools, maybe not to Gonchar's extent, but he had that same skill set. And I think Gonchar really turned him into a well-rounded player. Again, not just Gonchar, but the staff in Pittsburgh. And yeah, man, I mean, Justin Schultz to me is the prime example of Sergei Gonchar being the defenseman whisperer, taking a one-dimensional offensive defenseman and turning him into, arguably the most important defenseman on the Pittsburgh Penguins during the 2017 Cup run.
Crazy. Can you name me those defensemen that were playing, top 6 minutes for the Penguins when Letang came out? Because I think there lies the answer, right? To your question, maybe like, who's more important, Adam Foote or Sergei Gonchar? Like, look at our defensemen on paper again and kick it all the way back to September. There is no way one person, even with this D-Core being led by Quinn Hughes and Philip Roenick, there's no way one person who's covering the league would say that the Vancouver Canucks are going to, be at the top of the league in goal differential, and it's going to be due in large part to their defense being really, really sturdy. And again, since the All-Star break, which is way back, like that's a long time ago, the Canucks are one of, if not the best defensive teams in hockey. So I guess Gonchar, he might be the answer. Like, who's more important anyway? So who were these defensemen playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins? Because if you name them out, they might sound a lot like Nikita Zadorov, Ian Cole, Carson Soucy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, one of them sounds a lot like Ian Cole because one of them was Ian Cole. But I'll list them off in terms of ice time. Actually, I did have it wrong. My apologies. Justin Schultz, 4th in ice time. But the ice time between these guys, between the first guy and the 6th guy, there's only 3 minutes difference, right? Or you think about teams like, the 2007 Ducks come to mind, where you have Pronger and Niedermeyer and Francois Beauchemin playing 30 minutes, and the rest of the guys playing 10 minutes. I mean, this Pittsburgh team, everyone was in between, 19 and 22 minutes. But it was Brian Dumoulin, Ron Hainsey, Ole Mata, Justin Schultz, Trevor Daley, and Ian Cole. That sounds like an expansion level defense, but that is a defense that won the Stanley Cup in 2017. So, and again, Rutherford was in the building for that. Alvina was in the building for that. Taka was in the building for that. Gonchar was in the building for that. So there's a lot of, exciting building blocks there. A lot of lessons, I think, learned during that run. And, I think it's one of the reasons now why, they ended up putting Hughes and Hronek together, looking back at that in hindsight, because you have the super pairing and it's like, we can make the rest work. And they've done so far this season.
Hey, speaking of which, look at this comment from Mark, okay? Hughes will play 35 minutes. Probably in the playoffs. You never know, man. He's going to get a lot of minutes, and Hronek will get a lot of minutes too. But those other 4 guys, again, this floor being raised in totality by all those guys. But man, oh man, a lot of work being done by those guys behind the bench. And we shouldn't be surprised because, again, growing up, when I fell in love with the game, 2 of the best 15 defensemen in the league were Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar. So much change for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's been right in front of us why it's happening. And it's, the leadership, man, some real OGs. Like, we're not talking about, just like hockey nerds becoming coaches or people that have worked their way up, and know their X's and O's. Like, we're talking about guys that did it, won championships, and were some of the best in their class, man. Real talk. Okay, let's get to the comments before we get to segment 2. Let us know in the comments below if Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar deserve to have their numbers in the rafters at Rogers Arena. Okay, we got Zachary Kyle here, okay? Begsy is all about the feet, okay? Again, more foot fetish talk here on Locked On Canucks, okay? Straight up. And look at Zachary Kyle. This is why you cannot trust guys with 2 first names, okay? He's talking about Tyler Myers here. If Myers is going to get a penalty, he needs to make it worth it, okay? Maybe take out a star player or something. Again, this comment comes from a guy named Zachary Kyle. You cannot trust a guy with 2 first names. But you should go check out his music. This guy's a pretty funky dude. Real talk. We'll get to more of your comments throughout the show. Good start, man. You know what? Making me more confident going into not only the game against the Golden Knights tonight, but just the playoffs, man. There's something different about this team, and it's because, again, look across the league, coaching staff-wise, in the front office, there's just so much championship pedigree, and maybe they know what they're doing here, and we're about to see one of the coolest books in NHL history be written right now.
Straight up, man. And on the other side, I'll give you my take on who I think is more important between Foote and Gonchar, and I'll tell you why Tyler Myers cannot play another game for the Vancouver Canucks this season. All that coming up next on the other side, along with Goats of the Week. Before we get to that, let's shout out our friends over at FanDuel. Okay. You know what the month is? It is April, and it is a loaded calendar for sports, okay? And FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use to bet on the tourney, the MLB, the NBA, and the NHL, and so much more. So make sure you go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Boom, bam. Shout out to FanDuel, man. I can't wait to win $10,000 this week, man, using FanDuel. People, we doing it, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. My name is Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. Do us a favor, okay? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It does really help us out a lot, okay? Because Trevor and I don't really have foot fetishes. Well, Trevor doesn't have one anymore. We got to impress our girlfriends, okay? So a like goes a long way. Straight up. It really does, man. It really does. Hey, speaking of, going a long way or doing something that will go a long way. Bro, impressing me tonight and the rest of this fan base in Vegas with a solid performance, maybe a 4-1 win with more than 29 shots on goal would be something, man. It would feed my ego, okay, and my heart.
100%, man. And I think, we saw the Canucks play that game. It was one of their best games in the season when they were in Vegas back in March there. I believe it was a 3-1 win. And that was the kind of hockey that, when the Canucks are at their best is the kind of game they're playing where they're basically allowing next to nothing in terms of high danger chances. And they're being opportunistic, right? Now, I know we said time and time again, they need to shoot the puck more, but I do think the recipe for success for this team might just be to crack through once or twice. That might be all they need, right? A little more juice on the power play would be good, but they got it in them to do it, right? And again, we talked about on yesterday's episode. If you missed it, go check it out, baby. Where we talked about first round opponents, and I said two things. I said, the Vegas Golden Knights, I think they're the most likely first round opponent right now. If you want to hear why, go check out yesterday's episode. And now they're also the most enticing matchup to me because I think there's a ton of excitement there. So Canucks and Vegas are going to play each other this week and next week. So there's 2 more games against each other. Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting stuff. But Kyle, let me tell you why I don't think Tyler Myers should play another game this season. I don't even want him playing tonight. Okay, Tyler Myers. Here's his stat line for the season: 69 games played, 69 penalty minutes, 4 goals, and 20 assists.
Wow.
End the season right there, man. That is the best stat line of all time. End his season right now.
What you're trying to say is 24 hours a day, Tyler Myers is 1169. Is that why you don't want him to play anymore? Hey, you know what? 69 is one of the most overrated positions in the world of sport. And foot fetishes, dude, come on. It's like plus minus, man. What are we doing? Straight up. So what are we doing? Okay, speaking about what are we doing, we're talking about the goats of the week, okay? This is almost coming to an end. And Begsy's been doing this all season long. I'm really curious to see, how the list looks like this week. But hey, in a couple of weeks, we're about to announce the GOAT of the year for your Vancouver Canucks. Let's take it 1 week at a time, though, and do it today again on GOATs of the Week.
All right, the GOATs of the week. Yeah, Kyle, like you said, we're getting to the end of the year. Well, might have to start at new in the playoffs, okay? But the GOATs of the week, first and foremost, I'm starting at the top this week. Some weeks I start at 5, some weeks I start at 1. It's our show. We do what we want. This week I'm starting at number 1. And Kyle, do you want to guess who I'm picking number 1 this week? Who would be your number 1 GOAT of the week?
Dakota Joshua, man. Let's on, man.
Let's go, baby. It's Dakota Joshua. I thought about JT Miller for a sec, too, because I thought JT Miller had a good week. I thought Garland had a good week. I kind of just spoiled the top 3 there. But Dakota Joshua, it's one of the more impressive returns from injury that I can think of in the very recent past. But Dakota Joshua comes back right away, leads the team in hits. He's the first guy over the boards in the penalty kill. And then obviously he goes and does what he does this week in terms of, in the Dallas game, he's in front of the net when Miller scores the only goal of that game. He's wreaking havoc. And then the Ducks game, he scores the game when there were 2 minutes left, and then one of the sickest goals of the season with between the legs play that was aided by the Anaheim Ducks defender being slow as molasses getting to him. But I digress. Just a really good week for Dakota Joshua. And Kyle, I'll say him. JT Miller's my number 2 GOAT of the week. Garland number 3.
Nice.
Your thoughts on that line, man? Because I think I like that line, but are you concerned that the rest of the roster is too thin in other parts? What are your thoughts on that?
We a cup favorite, and you're asking me if oh my god, you're moving your third line wingers to the top line, is that gonna thin out your whole lineup, bro? It's not gonna do it, dude. We good, we Gucci. This shows our depth, okay? Again, I think, and again, I'm all over the place. This was something that I did not want to see. And I've only seen it for a couple periods, but I kind of see the recipe for success here because Garland and Joshua already, again, are playing so good together. You can tell these guys are best buds. They got that chemistry. They're feeling themselves. Joshua playing for a lot. Garland playing for a lot, trying to prove a lot. And now they're outside of the best player on this team or the best forward on this team, and that's JT Miller, who happens to be one of the best forwards in hockey. I think there's a recipe there for something really, really surprising to happen. And it's pretty much just this, okay? Remember what we saw from Joshua, Bluger, and Garland? Well, imagine if we see the same thing, but Bluger turns into Miller. I think there could be something really, really, really exciting there. But I think I'm more content with that proposition because, man, I'm running out of room here, man. I'm running out of room here. I'm looking for answers. And I think one of the answers for Elias Pettersson to pick up his game is putting him with Brock Besser. And Brock Besser waking him up for the long run, okay? Imagine that. Imagine if JT Miller, Dakota Joshua, Connor Garland can do their thing, provide you a goal or goal and a half per game, blah, blah, blah. Just be dynamic. and then you have Besser and Pettersson and Höglander as your quote unquote second line, and they're firing. Like, just the sound of that makes sense to me, and that gets me excited.
No, I think that's a great point, and that kind of teases the number 4 go to the week. And to me, it is Brock Besser. 2 goals this week in a low scoring week for the Canucks. They scored what's my math? 7 goals this week. 3 against the Ducks, 1 against the Stars, and 2 against the Kings. 6 goals this week. So not a lot to choose from there. But Brock Besser had 2 of them, and his 2 goals were scored without Elias Pettersson picking up a point on them. Elias Pettersson and Nils Höglander are both guys that did not have points last week. So when you look at Besser's goal, one of the power play against the Ducks, and then another with time expiring or in the last couple minutes against the Kings. So, look, I really want to believe that Besser's going to be the guy to get Pettersson going, but you need to start seeing it this week, right? Like, I want to be doing Goats of the Week next Monday and be talking about Pettersson, Höglander, and Besser all making that list, right? Because, yeah, it's I don't want to talk too much about Pettersson because we've talked about it already. But yeah, he's not at his best right now, and I still believe he can get there. I believe Besser can help get him there, but we need to start seeing it, and hopefully it starts tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, straight up. Okay, who's your number 5 goat? Did you already say it? Can I guess?
I did not. No, I did not choose Casey Smith. Casey Smith 0-2 this week with a 904 save percentage. I did not go with Casey Smith. That's honestly, choosing number 5 this week was really tough, and I think you're going to raise an eyebrow at this, but I'm going with Sam Lafferty. I saw a little things weak from Sam Lafferty. He had 20 hits in 3 games, which was almost double the next Canuck. So the guy was, I don't think there's any thunderous hits out there, but I think he's really trying to cement his place in the lineup, right? I think he's seeing guys around him like Baines get an opportunity, Puck Holden get an opportunity. DiGiuseppe and Amon have been sniffing around, right? Lafferty's been a healthy scratch a couple of times. And I think from Lafferty last week, you saw a guy who definitely wants to cement his place in the lineup come playoff time. Definitely when he was up on that Miller line against the Kings last Tuesday, that was a bit puzzling. Lafferty, Baines, and Miller didn't really. But it doesn't matter where he is in the lineup. I think he is really trying to spend his spot in the lineup. So I went with Sam Lafferty as my number 5 GOAT of the week. And for the yearly power rankings, Miller's leading this by quite a bit. So when we talk about Canucks MVP, if it was based on the yearly power rankings, Miller would be number 1. Hughes number 2, Pettersson and Demko are actually tied for number 3. Maybe give Demko the leg up there because he's been injured for a bit. Besser number 5, Höglander number 6, Hronek 7, Garland 8, Joshua 9, and Pius Suter is 10th. That's
wow, what a list, man!
There, baby.
What a list! What a year, and what a game tonight, man! Again, we've been gifted so many things, due in large part to Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar and all those guys that Trevor Beggs just listed off, and it still feels as if tonight means so much still, like the season is not pending on tonight's game, but we're all waiting for this shift going into the playoffs for how the Canucks are, playing. And over the last couple of weeks, it's been boring. And I hope that all changes tonight. Again, in Vegas, on the other side, we'll talk more about Vegas, and we'll talk about Connor Garland and some of his exciting moments. Well, in his opinion, the most exciting moments of the Canucks season. And your comments. Trevor, who we shouting out on this episode of Locked On Canucks?
All right, let's wrap up the show on the other side. Oh, one more thing before we wrap up. I did say in this segment, I would say who I think has been more impactful between Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar, and I'm going with Adam Foote now. Who knows? Foot fetish. Exactly, man. Come on. I'm all about the foot fetish. But I will say, when I've been up on Media Row and I'm looking at the Canucks bench, I almost always see Foote talking to the guys on the bench. And I know Sergei Gonchar is in a bit more of a lesser role, let's say. He's not behind the bench for every single game. But Adam Foote, constantly talking to his guys, constantly communicating. And I do think that has made a big difference for your Vancouver Canucks, who are, again, one of the best teams in the NHL. We'll talk more about that on the other side, baby. But before we do that, let's shout out our friends over at Sleeper. You know the deal, okay? The Vancouver Canucks are one of the best teams in the NHL. Do you want to be the best at something else? Make sure you try playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official Daily Fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is my number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you could win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick where the studs like Connor Garland, Phil DiGiuseppe, or Dakota Joshua will record more or less in their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, You need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Canucks fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper and locational availability.
Man, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in Vancouver, all my real fans.
People, we back here on Locked On Canucks. My name's Kyle Banlin. That right there is Trevor Beggs. The Canucks are in Vegas tonight, and this game really matters. I really hope you have a fun time watching it. And speaking of you guys going off in the comments, okay? Talking about Trevor's foot fetish and how I look like a model from a Gap catalog in 1991. I still shop at Gap, man. I actually shop at Gap because I remember growing up, like, what did Gap stand for? Great and proud. So yeah. I'm like, yeah, totally. I want to be great and proud. Straight up, I'm down. And then somebody said I could pull it off as well. I think Mark also said that I look like a character out of Blue's Clues, or I shopped from like the Blues Clues.
Oh, that sure does remind me of Blues Clues. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, man. Shout out to Blues Clues. A really, really innovative show, man. One love to. Do your children watch that? Is that still on?
They have not watched it, no. I don't know if it's still on. That's a good question.
Damn, you're a great father. Congratulations, buddy.
Thanks, man.
You got to step it up, man. You really got to step it up. Straight up. Hey, speaking of stepping it up, you asked me a question, a couple minutes ago. Can Garland and Miller and Joshua all play well together? I think I didn't spend enough time talking about how easy this transition may be because Garland is really good, man. I'm convinced that this guy's just really good at playing hockey. He's proven it year after year after year, but I think he's taken a step this season, and maybe he piles up a bunch of points, a.k.a. is our best player tonight, and maybe he creates a new moment that would be added to this list that he made up for Canucks.com.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because my mentality the whole season has been, one of the strengths of the Canucks is they got 3 great lines that can score, right? And it was, the Besser line in hockey and Miller and Besser and Pettersson on that top line with Höglander and whoever else. And now it's like, okay, now you got Besser, Pettersson, Höglander top line, Miller to Joshua Garland. And then it's like, Blueger and Pius Suter, I think they are, more than commendable bottom 6 centers. But is there enough scoring on the wings right now? And to be honest, the answer right now is no, because the Canucks just aren't scoring enough goals. Can they turn that around? We'll see. And Lindholm plays a part in it too. We didn't really touch on it too much, but Lindholm is on this road trip right now. And Demko is not. So Lindholm, I guess, could suit up. It sounds like he will suit up before the end of the regular season, which is a really good sign for the Vancouver Canucks. Even though he hasn't been the player that we traded for, I think he's still more impactful than, a guy like, Puckholzen or whatever.
Mm-hmm. No, straight up. I mean, we didn't mention Lindholm because I don't know we were talking about him today. I thought we were talking about Connor Garland's top 3 moments on Canucks.com. Like, what was he talking about? The whole Lindholm thing to me is like, I understand, when you asked me the question about Joshua Blueger, blah, 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 Besser, Pettersson, I know we didn't mention Lindholm's name. It's just like, dude, like, I'm thinking about tonight. I'm really thinking about tonight. And how does Lindholm crack the top 6 moving forward? If I totally believe that the Canucks need to make a statement tonight. And if they do make a statement, that's without Lindholm. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Going to be a heck of a game. And let's see if there'll be a top 3 Canucks moment from this season. I want to bring up 3 moments that Connor Garland mentioned as he talked about home games specifically, the loudest moments in the crowd this season. He mentioned the Nils Höglander backhand goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I do think sneaky. He wanted to say his own goal, but he didn't want to be too cocky because he scored a pretty sick goal in that game as well. I had a 3-pointer against the Maple Leafs. The other 2 he mentioned was the Quinn Hughes overtime winner against the New York Islanders. I was in the building for that one. That one got me out of my seat for sure. And Hronek's tying goal in that game was pretty phenomenal as well. But the third moment Connor Garland mentioned was the Philip Hronek game-tying goal against the Boston Bruins with just over a minute to go in that contest back in February. Kyle, was there another moment at Rogers Arena this season that stood out to you as one of the best moments this season?
Yeah, dude. And it ironically has to do with Philip Hronek. Like you mentioned his tying goal against the Islanders. I mean, he's the one that tied the game against the Boston Bruins too in Vancouver, and the place erupted. My household erupted.
Yeah, so that was the goal I was talking about. That's the goal Garland mentioned. Did I say Islanders? I might have.
I don't know, maybe because again, he at the end of the day, Hronix has scored 2 really important game-tying goals at Rogers Arena, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which means I think he has another one in store, man. I'm predicting it tonight, man. Filip Hronek is scoring a big goal tonight. He really is, okay? Yeah, I'm nervous, man. Can we stop talking about the past, Trevor? I don't care about the past. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, and let us know in the comments below, like, how important is this game tonight? Because for me, it's a 10.6.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with an 8.5 because you definitely don't want to lay an egg against a team who you could very well could be facing in round 1 of the playoffs right now. And I know Vegas has made a bit of a push there into that third wildcard spot, but the point I brought up on yesterday's show was that the Los Angeles Kings have the easiest schedule remaining in the NHL. They play the Canucks and the Jets, and then they have 7 games against non-playoff teams. So the Kings could very well surpass Vegas. Vegas has a bit more of a tougher schedule, including tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, if you're not a fan of facing Vegas, you might want to cheer for Vegas to win tonight. But I think Canuck fans are going to cheer for that, and I'm certainly not cheering for that either, because a Canucks win over Vegas would up the probability of them facing Vegas in round 1.
Yeah, no, it's huge, man. And again, my mind is there. It wasn't anywhere close to where it was supposed to be at the end of this show, because I was not paying attention, okay, to anything Begsy was saying. I'm in Vegas already, man. I'm in Vegas. It's just the truth. I'm being honest, man. Like, this is what happens to me when the games matter. It's April now. The games have not mattered in April in such a long time. Like, keep that in mind, Canucks fan. You're about to watch a game in April, and the feeling is back, man. Like your stomach is gonna feel weird tonight. It really is. It's going to be antsy. It's going to mean a lot. And I hope the Vancouver Canucks win. I hope they dominate. And I hope they just make a statement, so that they can kind of use the momentum that they generate tonight going into the playoffs. Because, again, there's a lot being left off the table when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks and how they've been playing offense. And based on the talent that they have on their roster, that should not be the case. I don't care if Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar are implementing the structure and this team now needs to lean into their greatest strength, and that's their defense. No, it isn't. It isn't. The greatest strength to this team is not its defense or their structure. When you have Pettersson, Miller, and Hughes, that should not be the case. Explode offensively, okay? Speaking of exploding, foot fetishes, man. A lot of talk about foot fetishes, man, on today's episode. And I'm sorry, man. We just love Adam Foote. Thank you, Adam Foote, for making us think about foot fetishes. My name's Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. Hit the like button, subscribe. The Discord. We talk about foot fetishes in the Discord, okay? We also talk about plugs. No, 420 plugs, okay? Not those other type of plugs. Okay, we talk... Canucks fans, we have a lot of conversations. I even recommended a book. I even recommended a book to the people, okay? It's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. You can get into all of that conversations amongst Canucks fans, okay? In the Discord below. So just sign up for that. And again, we love you, man. This is the home of the West Coast Buy. Shouts to Don't Doze Art Lab for supplying that neighborhood feeling. And I'm all over the place because I'm thinking about plugs. And Trevor Beggs, sign us out.
Well, I'll be damned.
Unbelievable stuff. All right, big game tonight on Locked On Canucks. We got you covered, man. Remember, it's your Canucks every damn day, okay? So we're going to have you covered tomorrow with everything that happened in this game. And, hey, the Canucks play again tomorrow as well. So, it's the stretch drive. Hockey is exciting. Let's go, baby. But, again, we're nothing without you here, the listener, whether you're an everydayer, an occasional listener, a first-time listener, a new subscriber, or you join us on the live YouTube show. Again, we love each and every one of you, your family, and your pets too, okay? We've got a lot of love here on Locked On Canucks, especially for feet, okay? But more on that on the Discord as well. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bowen. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Dude, we had such a strong start to the episode. I do not know what happened there, man.
Well, I'll be damned.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the